I'm going to tell you about the stupidest decision of my life, and no, it wasn't cheating, though my husband's divorce papers say otherwise. When my ex-boyfriend showed up at my door in the middle of the night, soaking wet and desperate, I let him sleep on my couch, and by morning my 8-year marriage was over. Everyone thinks they know what happened that night. My friends won't return my calls. My mother-in-law posted on Facebook that she always knew I was trash. Even my own sister asked me how I could do something so selfish. The thing is, they're all reacting to what they think happened, not what actually went down in my living room while my husband was upstairs sleeping 20 feet away. I'm going to walk you through every single moment of that night, including the part I haven't told anyone yet, the thing that makes this whole disaster so much worse than anyone realizes. Because the real reason my marriage ended isn't what you think. It started 6 months before that night, back when everything in my life seemed perfectly fine. I had a good job as a marketing coordinator, a beautiful house in the suburbs, and a husband who still kissed me goodbye every morning. Michael and I had been together since college, married for 8 years, and we just started seriously talking about trying for a baby. I thought I knew exactly how my life would unfold. Then Marcus sent me a friend request on Facebook. Marcus. My first real boyfriend, the guy I dated for 3 years in high school and my freshman year of college. We'd broken up when I transferred schools and I hadn't spoken to him in over a decade. His profile picture showed him looking basically the same, maybe a little older, definitely still handsome in that careless way he'd always had. I accepted the request without thinking much about it. Michael knew about Marcus, had even joked about him a few times as my practice husband. There was no reason not to accept. Marcus sent me a message the next day. Wow, you look happy. Life treating you well? We chatted for maybe 20 minutes. Superficial stuff, jobs, whether mutual friends from high school. He mentioned he was going through a divorce, which made me sad for him. I told him about my marketing job and how Michael had just made partner at his accounting firm. Normal, friendly, completely innocent catching up. I didn't tell Michael about the conversation. Not because I was hiding it exactly. It just didn't seem worth mentioning. That was my first mistake, though I didn't know it yet. The second mistake came a week later when Marcus messaged me again, and then again a few days after that. Our conversations got longer, more personal. He told me about his failing marriage, how his wife had cheated with his best friend. I commiserated, shared some frustrations about Michael working such long hours. Still innocent, I told myself. Just two old friends reconnecting. By the third week we were messaging every day. Marcus would send me funny memes during my lunch break. I'd tell him about annoying situations at work, things I used to complain to Michael about until he got too busy to really listen. Marcus always listened. He remembered details from conversations we'd had days earlier. Looking back, I can see exactly what was happening. But at the time, I convinced myself this was just friendship, maybe even healthy, having someone to talk to who wasn't caught up in the daily grind of my regular life. The first time Michael almost caught me texting Marcus, my heart jumped in a way that should have told me everything I needed to know. I was sitting on the couch, smiling at something Marcus had written about our old English teacher, when Michael came up behind me and asked what was so funny. I locked my phone screen and said it was just a meme from a coworker. He shrugged and went to grab a beer from the fridge. The moment passed, but my pulse was racing, and a voice in the back of my head whispered that if this was so innocent, why was I lying? I told that voice to shut up. I wasn't doing anything wrong. We were just talking. 3 months into our renewed friendship, Marcus asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime. He was going to be in town for a work conference just for an afternoon. It would be great to see me in person after all these years. I stared at that message for 10 minutes before responding. Meeting him felt like crossing a line, even though I couldn't articulate exactly what line that was. We were just old friends. People had coffee with old friends all the time. Michael had lunch with his ex-girlfriend Sarah at least twice a year when she was in town, and I'd never cared. But Michael always told me when he was meeting Sarah. I typed and deleted 3 different responses before finally writing, sure, I usually have time around 2 on Thursdays. I still didn't tell Michael. I rationalized it as not wanting to deal with explaining who Marcus was, dredging up old history that didn't matter. Michael was stressed about a big client anyway. Why add something for him to worry about when there was nothing to worry about? The coffee date was supposed to last an hour. We sat in that Starbucks for 3 hours, talking and laughing like no time had passed at all. Marcus looked good, better than in his photos. He'd always had this intensity when he focused on me, like I was the only person in the world who mattered. I'd forgot how intoxicating that felt. We talked about everything. High school memories, our families, his divorce. He asked about my marriage, and I found myself being more honest than I'd intended. About how Michael and I had fallen into a routine, how sometimes I felt more like his roommate than his wife, how we kept saying we'd make more time for each other but never actually did. Marcus listened with those intense eyes and said, "You deserve someone who makes you a priority." I knew I should have disagreed, should have defended Michael. Instead, I just smiled sadly and changed the subject. When we finally left, Marcus hugged me goodbye in the parking lot. It lasted maybe 3 seconds too long. Long enough for me to breathe in his cologne, to feel his hand pressed against my lower back, to wonder what I was doing. "We should do this again," he said. "Definitely," I heard myself reply. I drove home in a daze, guilt churning in my stomach. I'd crossed a line. Maybe not a clear, obvious line, but a line nonetheless. When Michael asked about my day that evening, I told him about a meeting with a difficult client and said nothing about Marcus. That night, lying next to my husband in bed, I told myself I wouldn't meet Marcus again. This had been a one-time thing, closure from an old relationship, nothing more. But when Marcus texted me 2 weeks later saying he'd be back in town, I agreed to meet him for coffee again. And then again 3 weeks after that. By the fourth meeting, we'd upgraded from coffee to lunch. By the fifth, we were texting every single day, sometimes late into the night after Michael had gone to bed. I'd lie there in the dark, phone brightness turned down, smiling at messages from a man who wasn't my husband. My friend Jenny noticed something was different. We were having drinks after work one evening when she commented that I seemed distracted, happier somehow. "Are you and Michael doing okay?" she asked, concern creasing her forehead. "We're fine," I said automatically. "Why? I don't know, you just seem different lately. You're on your phone a lot." I laughed it off, made a joke about being addicted to Twitter. But her question nagged at me. Was I really that obvious? I looked at my phone again, saw 3 unread messages from Marcus, and felt a flush of guilt mixed with excitement. That night, I decided I needed to tell Michael about Marcus. Not everything. I wasn't ready to admit how often we were talking or how much I looked forward to his messages, but at least that I'd reconnected with an old friend. I found Michael in his home office, frowning at spreadsheets on his computer. "Hey, so there's this guy I used to date in high school," I started. Michael glanced up, distracted. We've been catching up lately, just as friends. I thought you should know." "That's nice, babe." He turned back to his computer. "Sorry, I've got to finish this by tomorrow morning." "Oh, okay." I stood there for another moment, waiting for him to ask questions. Who was this guy? How did we reconnect? How often were we talking? But Michael's attention was already back on his work. I told myself I'd tried to be honest. It wasn't my fault he didn't care enough to ask for details. Looking back, I can see exactly what I was doing. I was setting up a justification, creating a technicality where I could claim I'd told my husband about Marcus while knowing full well I hadn't really told him anything meaningful. 2 weeks later, Marcus kissed me. We were meeting for lunch at a restaurant across town, somewhere I'd never been with Michael, never been with anyone I knew. Marcus had just told me about his divorce being finalized, how relieved he felt, how this was a new chapter in his life. "I'm really glad you're in my life again," he said, reaching across the table to take my hand. I should have pulled away. I knew that even as I let his fingers intertwine with mine, as I felt that electric spark I hadn't felt with Michael in years. We walked to my car after lunch, talking about nothing important, both of us knowing something had shifted. In the parking garage, shielded from view by concrete pillars, Marcus turned to me. "I need to tell you something," he said. My heart was pounding. "What?" "I never stopped thinking about you. Even when I was married, even all these years, I always wondered what would have happened if we'd stayed together." I opened my mouth to respond, but I didn't know what to say. Before I could figure it out, he leaned in and kissed me. It was soft, tentative, asking a question, and for about 3 seconds I kissed him back. Then reality crashed in and I pulled away, stumbling backward against my car. "I can't," I said. "Marcus, I'm married." "I know, I'm sorry, I had to know if you felt it too." "I have to go." I fumbled with my car keys, hands shaking. "Wait, please, can we just talk about this?" "There's nothing to talk about. I'm married. This was a mistake." I drove home with tears streaming down my face, shame burning in my chest. I'd cheated on Michael. It was just a kiss, barely even that, but it still counted. I was a cheater. When I got home, Michael was already there, unusually early. He smiled when he saw me. "Hey, I got out of work early and grabbed Thai food. Thought we could have a nice dinner together." He'd even set the table, lit candles. It was the most romantic gesture he'd made in months, and the timing couldn't have been worse. I almost told him right then. The confession was sitting on my tongue, ready to spill out. "I kissed someone else today." But looking at his happy, unsuspecting face, at the effort he'd made for this surprise dinner, I couldn't do it. "This is so sweet," I said, forcing a smile. We ate dinner. I barely tasted the food. Michael talked about his day, about a funny thing a client had said about maybe going on a vacation soon, somewhere tropical. I nodded and smiled and felt like the worst person alive. That night, I deleted every message from Marcus. All of them, months of conversations gone. Then I blocked his number, blocked him on Facebook, cut off every avenue of communication. I told myself this was me choosing my marriage, doing the right thing. If I just never spoke to Marcus again, never acknowledged what had happened, then I could forget about it and move forward. Michael never needed to know. For 2 months, I kept to that resolution. Marcus tried to contact me a few times through email, through a mutual friend, but I ignored every attempt. The guilt faded from a constant knife in my gut to a dull, manageable ache. Michael and I had been getting along better. I was making more effort, and he seemed to notice, seemed to appreciate it. I'd almost convinced myself that I'd gotten away with it, that my moment of weakness hadn't destroyed everything. Then Marcus showed up at my house at 2 in the morning. It was a Tuesday night. Michael and I had gone to bed around 11. I'd been sleeping deeply when my phone started buzzing on the nightstand. I grabbed it, squinting at the screen. Unknown number. I rejected the call. It immediately started ringing again. What's going on? Michael mumbled beside me, half asleep. Wrong number, go back to sleep. I silenced my phone and put it face down, but a minute later there was a knock at our front door, soft at first, then more insistent. Are you expecting someone? Michael asked, more awake now. No, stay here, I'll check. I grabbed my robe and went downstairs, my heart pounding. Through the peephole I could see Marcus standing on my front porch. He was soaking wet, it had been raining all evening and he looked terrible. Even through the distorted fisheye view I could see his eyes were red, his hair disheveled. I opened the door a crack. What are you doing here? I'm sorry, I know it's late, I didn't know where else to go. His voice was thick, slurred slightly. He'd been drinking. You can't be here, my husband. Please, just give me 5 minutes, I'm in a really bad place right now. Behind me I heard Michael's footsteps on the stairs. Who is it? I made a split-second decision, the worst decision of my life, though I didn't know it yet. It's Marcus, I called back to Michael. An old friend, he's having an emergency. I opened the door wider and let Marcus in. Michael appeared at the bottom of the stairs, wearing pajama pants and a t-shirt, looking confused. Marcus stood dripping on our hardwood floor, swaying slightly. Marcus, this is my husband Michael. Michael, this is Marcus. We went to high school together. The two men shook hands awkwardly. Michael looked at me with questions in his eyes, but I avoided his gaze. What's going on? Michael asked. Marcus launched into an explanation. His ex-wife was trying to take full custody of their kids. His lawyer had called that evening with bad news about the case. He'd been at a bar drinking, and he'd been driving around afterward just trying to clear his head, and he'd ended up here. He knew it was crazy showing up like this, but he just needed to talk to someone who understood. It was all bullshit. I knew that even as I watched Michael's face soften with sympathy. Marcus didn't have kids. His divorce had been finalized months ago. This was a fabricated story designed to manipulate, to create an excuse for showing up at my house in the middle of the night. But I couldn't call him out on it without revealing that I knew way too much about his personal life, without explaining how close we'd become. Look man, I'm sorry you're going through that, Michael said, but it's 2 in the morning, maybe we could. He can stay, I interrupted. Both men looked at me in surprise. Just for tonight, he shouldn't be driving in this condition and he clearly needs a friend right now. He can sleep on the couch. I don't know why I said it. Maybe I was trying to prove to myself that there was nothing between Marcus and me, that I could have him in my house with my husband home and it would mean nothing. Maybe some part of me wanted the drama, wanted to see what would happen. Or maybe I just couldn't stand the thought of Michael seeing me turn away someone in need, couldn't bear to look cold or heartless in front of my husband. Michael frowned. Are you sure? We don't really know him. I know him. We were together for 3 years. He's a good person who's going through a rough time. I turned to Marcus. I'll get you some blankets. I could feel Michael's confusion, his discomfort with this whole situation, but he didn't argue. That was Michael's way, avoid conflict, go along with what I wanted even when he had reservations. I grabbed blankets and a pillow from the linen closet while Michael offered Marcus a glass of water. When I came back downstairs, they were making awkward small talk about sports. Here you go, I said, handing the bedding to Marcus. Bathroom's down the hall if you need it, we'll be upstairs. Marcus grabbed my hand as I turned to leave. Thank you, really, you're saving my life right now. I pulled my hand away quickly, aware of Michael watching. It's fine, we'll talk in the morning. Upstairs, Michael waited until we closed the bedroom door before speaking. Want to tell me what that was about? I told you, he's an old friend going through a custody battle. He needed help. You never mentioned this friend before. I did actually, a few months ago. You were working and didn't really pay attention. It was a low blow, weaponizing his workaholic tendencies against him, but it worked. Michael's face fell slightly. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't remember. So you guys were close in high school? Yeah, we dated for a while, but that was forever ago. We're just friends now. And he just randomly showed up here at 2 in the morning. He's going through a crisis, Michael. What was I supposed to do, turn him away? I guess not, this is weird, right? Having your ex-boyfriend sleep on our couch? Ex-boyfriend from over a decade ago. Would you feel better if I turned away someone who's clearly in pain and potentially suicidal just because we used to date when we were teenagers? When you put it that way, no, I'm sorry, you're right, I'm just surprised. We got back into bed. Michael fell asleep within minutes, but I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, very aware that Marcus was directly below us. What the hell was I doing? Around 3:30 I heard footsteps in the hallway, then the bathroom door closing. I waited, listening until I heard Marcus return to the living room. At 4 I heard him moving around again. Soft sounds, rustling, quiet footsteps. At 4:15 my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I can't sleep. Can you come down? Just to talk. My hands started shaking. I looked over at Michael, sleeping peacefully beside me, then I typed back, no, this is inappropriate, go to sleep. Please, 5 minutes. I should have ignored him. Should have turned off my phone and gone to sleep. Instead, I sat there in the dark, staring at those two words, feeling something dangerous unfurl in my chest. 2 minutes, I typed. And we're talking in the kitchen where Michael could hear us if he woke up. I slipped out of bed, grabbed my robe, and crept downstairs. Marcus was sitting on the couch in the dark, still fully dressed. He stood when he saw me. Thank you for keep your voice down, I whispered harshly, walking past him into the kitchen. He followed. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. What do you want, Marcus? I needed to see you. You've been ignoring me for months. Because we crossed a line, because I'm married. To a guy who doesn't even know who I am. Who didn't remember you mentioning me, who works so much he doesn't even notice you. That's not fair. Isn't it? Be honest, when was the last time he really saw you? When was the last time he made you feel the way you feel when you're with me? He moved closer. I should have backed away, should have told him to leave, should have screamed for Michael. Instead, I just stood there. This is wrong, I whispered. Then why did you let me stay? It was a good question, one I didn't have a good answer for. You can't be here, I said. You need to leave first thing in the morning. One kiss, that's all I'm asking. One real kiss, and if you don't feel anything, I'll leave and never contact you again. Marcus, but if you do feel something, you owe it to yourself to acknowledge it. You owe it to yourself to be happy. He was right in front of me now. I could smell the alcohol on his breath, could see the desperation in his eyes. This was so deeply wrong. My husband was sleeping upstairs. This man had shown up uninvited and was now manipulating me. Everything about this situation was a catastrophe in the making. I love my husband, I said, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. Do you, or do you love the idea of your marriage, the security, the comfort? That's not the same thing as being in love. His hand came up to my face, fingers brushing my cheek. I closed my eyes. Last chance, he whispered. Tell me to leave and I will. I opened my mouth to tell him exactly that. The word leave was forming on my lips when I heard a sound from upstairs, a floorboard creaking. We both froze. Footsteps. Michael was awake. I shoved Marcus away from me just as the kitchen light flicked on. Michael stood in the doorway, blinking in the sudden brightness, taking in the scene, me in my robe, Marcus standing too close, both of us looking guilty as hell. What's going on? Michael's voice was careful, controlled, but I could hear the suspicion underneath. Nothing, I said quickly. Marcus couldn't sleep. I was getting him some water. At 4:30 in the morning, in the dark. I didn't want to wake you. Is something going on between you two? The question hung in the air. This was my moment to come clean, to tell Michael everything. The months of messaging, the coffee dates, the kiss in the parking garage, all of it. No, I said. We're just friends. Marcus said nothing, just stood there watching me lie to my husband. Michael looked between us, his face a mixture of hurt and confusion and anger. Just friends don't sneak around in the dark at 4 in the morning. We weren't sneaking. I want him to leave now. Michael, he's been drinking. I want him to leave. Each word was clipped, precise. I'd never heard that tone from Michael before. Marcus held up his hands. Hey man, I don't want to cause problems. I'll go. Good. But for what it's worth, she deserves better than this. Better than someone who ignores her most of the time and then gets jealous when someone else pays attention to her. The words were like a match to gasoline. Michael's face flushed red. Get the fuck out of my house. I'm just saying what she's been thinking. Marcus, stop, I interrupted. Just leave, please. He looked at me for a long moment, something calculating in his expression. Then he shrugged. Fine. But you know where to find me when you're ready to admit the truth. He walked out, leaving his blankets on the couch. We heard the front door open and close, an engine starting, tires on wet pavement. Michael and I stood in the kitchen, the space between us feeling like an ocean. How long? He asked quietly. How long what? Don't. How long have you been talking to him? I could have lied, should have lied probably, but I was so tired of the deception, the weight of it all. A few months. His face crumpled. Are you sleeping with him? No, God no, we just talked, we're friends. Friends don't look at each other the way he was looking at you. Michael, I trusted you. You let your ex-boyfriend stay in our house and you were downstairs with him in the middle of the night in the dark and you're telling me nothing's going on. Nothing happened, but something almost did. I could see it on your face. He was right and we both knew it. I started crying, big gasping sobs that made it hard to breathe. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake, all of it. I should never have let him in, should never have. Should never have what? Started talking to him, met him behind my back, let him convince you I'm a terrible husband. You're not a terrible husband. Then why were you down here with him instead of upstairs with me? I didn't have an answer, not one that would make this better. Michael turned and walked back upstairs. I heard our bedroom door close. Not a slam, that would have been better somehow, just a quiet final click. I sank down to the kitchen floor and cried until the sun came up. Around 7 I went upstairs. Michael was already dressed in his work clothes, packing a gym bag with clothes and toiletries. What are you doing? I asked, though I knew. I'm staying at my brother's for a few days. I need space to think. Michael, please, can we talk about this? What's there to talk about? You've been having an emotional affair for months. You lied to me. You let him into our home. You were going to kiss him. Don't even try to deny it. I wasn't. I saw your face, Rebecca. I know what I saw. He zipped up the bag and walked past me. I followed him downstairs, pleading. It was stupid, I was stupid, but nothing physical happened. Doesn't that count for something? He stopped at the door, turned to look at me. His eyes were red. The worst part is I know I haven't been the best husband lately. I know I've been working too much, not making time for us. But instead of talking to me about it, instead of trying to fix our marriage, you went looking for validation from someone else. That's not... Yes, it is. That's exactly what you did. And now I don't know if I can trust you anymore. I don't know if I even know you anymore. He left. The house felt impossibly empty. I called in sick to work, spent the day alternating between crying and staring at walls. I kept picking up my phone to call Michael, then putting it down. What could I say that would make this better? Around 3 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, "Are you okay?" I stared at it for a full minute before responding, "You need to never contact me again. What you did last night was manipulative and cruel. You ruined my marriage." I didn't ruin anything. I just made you see what was already broken. Fuck you. I blocked the number, blocked every possible way he could reach me. Then I threw my phone across the room and screamed into a pillow. Michael didn't come home that night, or the next night. We texted a few times, logistical stuff about bills and his schedule, but nothing substantial. Every time I tried to start a real conversation, he'd shut it down with, "I need more time." On the third day, he came by the house while I was at work and packed more clothes. I knew because I came home to find his closet half empty, drawers missing their contents. He'd taken his toiletries from the bathroom, his pillow from the bed. It looked like someone moving out, not someone taking a few days to think. I tried calling him that night. He didn't answer. I left a voicemail, "Please, can we just talk? I love you. I made a terrible mistake, but I love you and I want to fix this. Please." He texted back an hour later, "I love you too, but love isn't enough right now, I need time." A week passed, then two. Michael and I had one face-to-face conversation in a coffee shop, neutral territory. I apologized, cried, begged him to come home. He listened with a closed expression, then said he was still processing, still figuring out what he wanted. "Do you want a divorce?" I asked, terrified of the answer. "I don't know. I don't know anything right now except that every time I think about you and him in our kitchen, I want to throw up." Nothing happened. Stop saying that. Something did happen. Maybe not physically, but emotionally something absolutely happened. You chose him over me, over our marriage, over everything we built together. I didn't choose him. I sent him away, after months of secret conversations, after meeting him behind my back. After letting him kiss you, yes, I figured that part out, after letting him convince you I wasn't good enough. You only sent him away because I caught you. That's not the same as choosing me. He was right. God, he was so right, and I hated it. 3 weeks after that night, Michael asked me to meet him at the house. I'd been staying with my sister, giving him space. I showed up with hope fluttering desperately in my chest. Maybe he decided to forgive me. Maybe we could start over. He was sitting at the kitchen table when I arrived, looking exhausted. There was a folder in front of him. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he started. "About us, about our marriage, about what I want." "Okay." I sat down across from him, trying to read his expression. "I talked to a therapist. She helped me work through a lot of stuff." "That's good. Maybe we could do couples counseling." "Rebecca, I want a divorce." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What? No. Michael, please. I can't get past this. I've tried. I really do, because I love you. But every time I think about forgiving you, I remember him standing in our kitchen. I remember you lying to me for months. I remember that you were going to kiss him, maybe do more than that, with me sleeping right upstairs." "Nothing happened." "Stop." His voice cracked. "Stop minimizing this. Stop pretending it was just a mistake, just a little thing. You had an affair. Maybe not a physical one, but an affair nonetheless. You gave pieces of yourself to someone else, pieces that were supposed to be mine." I was sobbing now, ugly crying that made my whole body shake. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. Please don't leave me. I'm already gone. I've been gone since that night. I'm just making it official." He slid the folder across the table, "Divorce papers. I had a lawyer draw these up. They're fair. You can have the house. We'll split everything else 50-50. I'm not trying to punish you. I can't be married to someone I don't trust. You can trust me. It'll never happen again. You're right, it won't, because we won't be together." I grabbed his hand across the table, desperate. "Please, give me another chance. Give us another chance." He pulled his hand away gently. "I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't." He stood up and I realized he was saying goodbye. This was it. Our marriage, 8 years together, 12 years total if you counted dating. All of it was ending because I'd been too stupid and selfish to appreciate what I had. "I'll always love you," Michael said from the doorway. "But I love myself more than I love you, and staying would mean choosing you over my own self-respect. I can't do that." Then he left, and I was alone with divorce papers and the ruins of everything I'd destroyed. The next few months were a blur of lawyers and paperwork and slowly dismantling a life we'd built together. Friends took sides, most of them took Michael's, which I couldn't blame them for. My family was disappointed, my mother particularly devastated that I'd thrown away a perfectly good marriage. "What were you thinking?" she demanded on the phone. "Michael was a wonderful husband. He had a good job, he treated you well, you had a beautiful home. And you risked it all for what?" Some high school boyfriend? I couldn't explain it to her. Couldn't explain how empty I'd felt, how invisible, how Marcus had made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. It would sound like excuses, like justifications, and maybe that's all they were. The divorce was finalized 4 months after that night. I signed the papers in a lawyer's office, my hands shaking. Michael wasn't even there, his lawyer handled everything. I got the house like he'd promised. Also half our savings, my car, some furniture. Everything divided neatly down the middle, like our life together was just a set of assets to be distributed. I saw him one last time when he came to pick up the last of his things. We were awkward with each other, polite like strangers. "How are you doing?" I asked, a stupid question given the circumstances. "I'm okay, dating someone actually." The news shouldn't have hurt, we were divorced, he had every right to move on, but it felt like another door slamming shut. "That's good, I'm happy for you." He looked at me for a long moment. "Are you happy for me? I want you to be happy even if it's not with me. I want that for you too. I hope you figure out what you're looking for, whatever it is that I couldn't give you." "Michael, it wasn't about you not being enough." "Yeah, it was, and maybe that's okay. Maybe we wanted different things, needed different things. Maybe we just weren't right for each other and it took this to make us see it." It was a kind interpretation, more generous than I deserved. "For what it's worth, I really am sorry, you deserved better." "Yeah," he said simply. "I did." After he left, I sat in our house, my house now, and tried to figure out where everything had gone wrong. Was it when I accepted Marcus's friend request? When I started messaging him daily? When I met him for coffee that first time? When I let him kiss me? Or was it earlier than that, in all the small moments when Michael and I had let our marriage become background noise, when we'd stopped really seeing each other, when we'd chosen convenience over connection? I thought about Marcus sometimes, wondered what he was doing. I never reached out, never unblocked him. He'd been a catalyst, but not the cause. The cause was my own emptiness, my own inability to communicate what I needed, my own willingness to seek validation outside my marriage rather than fixing what was broken inside it. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Michael at a grocery store. He was with the woman he'd mentioned, a pretty brunette who laughed at something he said. They looked happy, comfortable together. He saw me, waved, but didn't come over. I waved back and kept walking, blinking back tears in the frozen food aisle. A year later, I started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and dinners, trying to figure out who I was as a single woman in her 30s. I was honest with everyone I dated about what had happened with my marriage, took responsibility for my part in its destruction. Some guys disappeared after hearing the story. Others stuck around for a while before moving on. Nobody made it past 6 months. I started therapy, finally, trying to understand why I'd sabotaged the best thing in my life. My therapist talked about attachment styles, about seeking external validation, about the difference between wanting to be wanted and actually being in love. It helped slowly. I started to see the patterns, the ways I'd been using Marcus to avoid dealing with problems in my marriage, the ways I'd been using the attention to fill a void I should have been filling myself. 2 years after the divorce, I saw on Facebook that Michael got married, to the brunette from the grocery store. They looked radiantly happy in the photos, surrounded by friends and family, starting their life together. I felt happy for him, genuinely. Also sad for what I'd lost, for what I'd thrown away. But mostly I felt grateful that he'd found someone who could give him what I couldn't, who could make him a priority in the way I'd failed to. I never remarried, never even came close. I dated, had a few relationships that lasted a few months each, but nothing that felt like it could go the distance. People asked me sometimes why I was still single, if I'd ever want to settle down again. I usually made a joke, changed the subject. The real answer was that I didn't trust myself anymore. Didn't trust that I wouldn't fuck it up again, wouldn't get bored or restless, wouldn't go looking for something shinier when things got hard. Better to be alone than to hurt someone else the way I'd hurt Michael. I'm 40 now. I have a good job, good friends, a nice apartment. I'm fine mostly. Content even. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that moment in the kitchen, about the choice I made to let Marcus stay. If I could go back, would I do it differently? Send him away the moment he showed up at my door, tell Michael everything the next morning, fight for my marriage instead of letting it crumble? I want to say yes. But the truth is, I don't know. Because changing that one moment wouldn't change the fundamental problems, the loneliness in my marriage, the poor communication, the way I sought validation from outside sources instead of working on what I had. Maybe the marriage was doomed anyway. Maybe Marcus was just the match that lit a fire that was waiting to catch. Maybe Michael and I would have ended up divorced eventually regardless. Or maybe that's just what I tell myself to make it hurt less. I'm telling you this story now because yesterday I got a message on LinkedIn from Marcus. Just a simple, "Hey, how have you been?" Like the last decade hadn't happened, like he hadn't been the instrument of my marriage's destruction. I stared at that message for a long time. My finger hovered over the reply button, and for just a second, a brief, shameful second, I wondered what would happen if I responded. Then I closed the app, blocked him on yet another platform, and went for a walk. Because here's what I learned from that night and everything that came after. Some people come into your life as tests. Tests of your values, your priorities, your commitment to the things and people you claim to care about. And sometimes you fail those tests. Sometimes you fail them spectacularly, publicly, in ways that destroy everything you've built. The question is what you do after you fail. Do you keep making the same mistakes, keep chasing the same hollow validation? Or do you learn, grow, become someone who might actually deserve a second chance at happiness? I like to think I've done the latter, but I'm not sure I'll ever really know because I'm too scared to put myself in a position to find out. And maybe that's its own kind of failure, not the dramatic implosion of letting Marcus stay, but the quiet, ongoing failure of never fully opening myself up again. My ex-husband filed for divorce the morning after I let my ex-boyfriend sleep over his friends. Everyone thinks the story ends there, with me as the villain who got what she deserved. And maybe they're right. But the real story is longer, messier, sadder than that. It's about the slow erosion of a marriage, the lies we tell ourselves, the choices we make in moments of weakness, and the price we pay for those choices long after the moment has passed. It's about a woman who thought she knew what she wanted, who confused attention with love, who lost something real while chasing something that was never actually there. It's about me, sitting in my apartment at 40 years old, still wondering if I'm capable of the kind of love that lasts, that perseveres, that chooses commitment over excitement. I don't have an answer. I might never have an answer. But I know this: if you have something good, something real, hold on to it. Fight for it. Don't let it become background noise. Don't go looking for sparks when you have a steady flame. Because once you've burned down your life, you can rebuild. But it will never be the same house. Trust me, I'm living in the ashes and they still haven't settled.